Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Today is the first month, fifth day of Muharram. And we are focusing on the lessons that we learn from the events of Karbala and from the monumental sacrifice offered by Imam Hussein in the battlefield of Karbala. With the Islamic City team is Dr. Walji, who is a prominent Muslim activist and thinker, and he represents the Hoja tradition. He originally comes from East Africa. And of course, behind the scene is Brother Aji and Brother Aleem, who have been instrumental in putting this series together. And I am Aslam Abdullah, associated with Islamic City and other organizations. We have had discussions on the essence of leadership, on the issue of justice, on the issue of virtuousness. And then today we want to focus on one of the most important things that we refer to as loyalty. And Dr. Walji, of course, would give his perspectives and from the life of Imam Hussein. But when we look at the concept of loyalty, we find that the general definition of loyalty is a kind of devotion to a philosophy, to a group, to a person, to an ideology. Now, the earliest reference that we find about this issue of loyalty, we find in Plato's Euthyphro. It's one of the earliest dialogues. And he is discussing the ethical dilemma arising from an event where whether to lay manslaughter charges against his own father, who had caused the death of his slave through negligence. So we find that kind of references, and there basically the discussion has been on those issues. And then in modern times, in one of the books which was written by Josiah Royce, it was written in 1908, and it is called The Philosophy of Loyalty. And in this particular book, Royce talks about loyalty as a virtue, a primary virtue, the heart of all virtues, the central duty amongst the duties. And then he presents loyalty, which he defines at length as the basic moral principle from which all other principles can be derived. And then the definition that he gives of the idea is that loyalty is the willing and practical and thorough giving devotion of a person to a cause. So it is not a casual interest, but a wholehearted commitment to a cause. And then when we look at the other definitions, we find something very interesting in the biblical literature also. Where we find in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is talking about a person cannot have two masters. When he says that no one can serve two masters, either he will hate the one and love the other, or will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Then the concept of loyalty was further explained and further developed by modern social scientists, and they basically talk about 5 dimensions of loyalty. That the loyalties differ in strength. They differ in the on the basis of their foundations. They differ in scope. They differ in legitimacy, and then they differ in attitude. So some people can have loyalties based on the strength, some based on the scope, some based on legitimacy, some based on attitudes, and some based on the foundation. What is fascinating is to look at the life of the Imam Hussein and find that his loyalties were, 100% all those 5 criterion that the modern social scientists have been. That was not only the loyalty based on his strength, his conviction, but loyalty is based on scope of the sacrifices that he was going to offer, or the legitimacy of his cause, or the what we call the attitude and the foundation itself. And the foundation itself was the moral values of his faith. So it is really fascinating to see that how a person who may not have been trained in social sciences and who may not have gone to the universities and colleges certainly lived up to all those things that the modern social sciences and modern world would discover some 4800 years, and how the loyalties can manifest themselves in various aspects of one's life. And one find Imam Hussein as an embodiment of all those things. I'll stop here and I'll hand it over to Dr. Walji to further the discussion, and then we will have some more comments. So, Dr. Walji, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Dr. Aslam, for that excellent definition of loyalty when you say that loyalty is at the heart of every virtue. And also the interesting juxtaposition that you just did of the various facets of loyalty as were demonstrated by Imam Hussein in Karbala 1400 years ago. So allow me to share and continue with that tale of unwavering loyalty and ultimate devotion, which really transcends time and space. And I'd like to talk about the loyalty of his followers, those who were with him. So picture a dark and a fateful night on the plains of Karbala, where Imam Hussein and his faithful companions were faced with overwhelming odds, outnumbered by the enemy forces. Imagine the weight of impending danger that hung in the air. And here, perhaps with a heavy heart, Imam Hussein makes a call. And as you said, Dr. Aslam, the call that he made was also to exemplify the very essence of loyalty. What he did was, as it's been noted by historians, that he extinguished the camp's candle, plunging the entire troops who were with him into darkness. And then he speaks with a voice filled with sincerity, concern, and love. He said, and I quote, "The enemy seeks me alone. They have no quarrel with you. The darkness now provides an opportunity for you to leave. I release you from your allegiance. You may depart and save yourselves." Can you feel the profound character of Imam Hussein? His belief in free will above all else, his respect for the autonomy of his companions, the independent thinking of his companions. It set a stage for an awe-inspiring display of loyalty that truly would define the legacy of Karbala for all humanity. But as the candle was relit, something incredible happened. In the face of imminent danger and overwhelming odds, not a single companion chose to leave. Their hearts were bound We're talking about the essence of loyalty, loyalty to the cause, loyalty to the leader. But beyond that, as Dr. Aslam mentioned earlier, it is truly a loyalty to the cause. And this loyalty was unbreakable. Amongst the first to step forward was a companion called Muslim ibn Awsaja. He had traveled all the way from Yemen to stand by Hussein's side. With unwavering determination, he declares that, O son of the Messenger of Allah, by Allah, I will never leave you, nor will I abandon you. I am steadfast in my allegiance to you, and I shall fight alongside with you until my last breath. And so the chorus of devotion grew stronger as each companion played their loyalty, saying, we will not leave you until we breathe out of our last breaths. We will defend you and stand by you, no matter what comes in our way. Now, defining loyalty as Dr. Aslam did, let us look at, analyze this to say this loyalty wasn't driven by personal gain or ambition. It was a bond of forged shared values, principles, and an unshakable faith in the righteousness of their cause. They freely gave their devotion, stemming from a profound belief in the standing up for truth and justice. So Karbala episode speaks volumes about the essence of true loyalty and the power of relationships which are built on trust, on love, and mutual respect. So let us take a moment to review this profound display of loyalty and look at a few other points in terms of what loyalty, what are the attributes of that loyalty beyond what Dr. Aslam has also mentioned. We know that it gives us purpose and meaning. Loyalty to a cause gives one a sense of purpose and meaning in one's life. It actually provides a higher calling that goes beyond personal interest, leading to a more fulfilling and a purpose-driven existence. Think of those inspiring figures in history who also exemplified this true loyalty. Mother Teresa, driven by a loyalty to the poor and sick, found a deep sense of purpose in her mission to alleviate suffering and provide love for those in need. Loyalty also gives one unity, and loyalty to a cause fosters that unity among like-minded individuals and belonging with a community of people who share common beliefs. If we think of history, there are many examples. One comes to mind is the suffragette movement, led by figures like Emmeline Pankhurst, which united men and women under the banner of women's suffrage, fostering a sense of that togetherness in their shared struggle for equal voting rights for women. Loyalty also inspires or gives us inspiration and influence. Individuals who display true loyalty to a cause become inspirational figures. We talked about Rosa Parks in the earlier episodes. Her unwavering loyalty to the cause of desegregation ignites the entire civil rights movement, inspiring positive change in the fight for racial equality. Loyalty can also lead to significant impact and transformative change in a society. It has fueled movements and brought about reforms and has challenged the status quo. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, loyal to ending racial segregation in South Africa, played a significant role, along with others, in dismantling apartheid and establishing a more inclusive society. Loyalty also gives us an opportunity for personal growth and self-improvement. It encourages individuals to learn, to adapt, to evolve in their journey of life, to contribute more effectively to society, particularly in the cause that they believe in. Malala Yousafzai, whose loyalty to girls' education and women's rights propelled her to become a world-renowned figure, as a Nobel Prize winner, inspiring everyone to strive for that personal growth and self-improvement. Finally, I look at ethical integrity. Loyalty to a cause truly enforces ethical integrity. It compels. Integrity is doing what you say that you would do. It compels us to act in alignment with our beliefs and values. One of the most important facets of loyalty really is to hold ourselves to much higher standards through the compass of ethical integrity. Oskar Schindler, we recall, risked everything to save over 1,000 Jewish workers during the Holocaust. This was integrity. So let this tale of loyalty from Karbala and through many other examples, touch our hearts to inspire to stand by one another. Because the episode from Karbala speaks volumes about the essence of true loyalty and the power of relationships. It teaches us that genuine loyalty cannot be imposed. It must be earned through sincerity and authenticity. With that said, let us kind of continue this discussion with some more wise words from Dr. Aslam, please.
Thank you very much. I think there are two other dimensions that I think we need to also take into consideration. One is, of course, is the loyalty to a cause, which was demonstrated by Imam Hussein and the entire family, without any exception. The second one is the loyalty of the family to Imam Hussein's leadership, that no one abandoned, despite the fact that he gave them the choice. When he said it's dark now, you can leave if you want to, and no one would say a single word to you. I mean, which is, of course, talks about the conviction of his loyalty to his cause, but also the devotion of his family members and supporters to his leadership and his wisdom and loyalty to his ideas. And I think that is a very remarkable thing, because in the case of, the opponents, the Yazidis and the tyrants, we find that they were mercenaries. They were being paid for doing it, whatever the dictators and despots was telling them. They did not have any conviction to stand for the empire of Islam. They did not have a intention to basically glorify Islam. They were violating Islam just because they were mercenaries. And here, on the other hand, you have people who came on their own free will, showing their loyalty to a cause and showing their loyalty to a leader who has taken a stand based on his convictions. And I think that is the most remarkable thing that we find. And certainly, if Islam had even 50 people devoted to that cause and devoted to notion in our times, things change. Because things do change. The idea that we are discussing Imam Hussein, despite the fact that he was decimated by the tyrant, is remarkable in the sense that none of us has forgotten and none of us would forget. One of the other issues that basically we need, I want to bring it up, that there is still some confusion in the minds of many people who describe themselves as Sunnis. They think that they could have a softer attitude towards those people who were tyrants and who were despots. And basically, they want to ride in two boats. And on the one hand, they acknowledge the sacrifice given by Imam Hussein, but they also say, well, the tyrant don't call him tyrant, he was not involved. His agents were involved. And he was the one who about whom the prophet had predicted that he would conquer Constantinople and all those kind of things. I mean, this is, I think, riding on two boats. There's first of all no such authenticity to that kind of statement attributed to the prophet that's about Constantinople. And secondly, how could the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam predict about this person who would be responsible for the murder of his grandson? And how cruel they are towards their own prophet, and how illogical they are. Just because it so happened that the powers that be, and that were the ones who were basically extolling the tyrants, that many of the scholars and many of the people succumb to those threats. But I think there is a time when we have to basically decide that we cannot serve two masters. Either we are with Allah and the cause that the Prophet and Prophet's family stood for, or we have to say that our commitment to all those values that we're talking about, whether justice or virtues or bravery or loyalty, is a mere play of words. And I think this needs to be emphasized. What we find in the example of the family of the Imam Hussein is that the loyalty was 100%, unmatched, and unchallenged. And certainly this is something that has to be celebrated. It's not only Imam Hussein, but the entire family of the Prophet needs to be celebrated for that celebration, in the sense that they knew what was going to happen, yet they offered their lives for a cause so that we could live that dream. Certainly, in our world today, we don't have perfect freedoms and perfect dignity and perfect respect that each and every human being would aspire for. Yet the dream is there. And we all long for that community and that society where this would happen. And this would happen when we go back to those values in the real sense of the term. Back to you, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. I think well said. We truly cannot be, if we are people of integrity, and I hope and pray that we all are, the ethical integrity will not allow us to be equivocal about this whole thing. Imam Hussein stood for the truth. Yazid was on the other side. We cannot possibly be on both the sides. And sometimes the irony as it is if we do not follow the path of Imam Hussein, and we lament, it's almost like saying that we sit in the camp of Yazid with everything that we do, which is against the philosophy of Imam Hussein, and yet we cry upon Imam Hussein. This again is a huge paradox in terms of our lament. We're almost out of time for today's episode. So if I may, Dr. Aslam, conclude with these words in this prayer, that may the legacy of Karbala continue to guide us, reminding us of the importance of loyalty, trust, and mutual respect, and that ethical integrity, so that we can build strong and enduring relationships, particularly so within the Muslim Ummah, Sunnis and Shias, as well as the rest of humanity, so that we are able to have this humanity which benefits from that call that was made in Karbala. And may we draw strength from their sacrifices to be better individuals ourselves first, embracing the virtues that can lead us to a brighter and more compassionate future and a more compassionate society. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim.